popcorn and candy.
Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of Popcorn and Candy. Today we're going to review a movie that I recently just watched and it blew me away. Such a great movie. And that movie today, if you couldn't tell by the title, is The Green Mile. Set in the 1930s, this tells the story of several death row guards and how their lives were changed by a very special inmate. Now, this inmate was charged with the murder and rape of two little girls, but he has a very special gift. And I had to say, this really threw me off. It's a Stephen King-based film, and like most people, I immediately associate anything Stephen King with horror and scary and something really, really weird. But this movie was not that. First, let's take a minute to be introduced to our main cast. First is Tom Hanks. This man has been in movies such as Forrest Gump, Castaway, Greyhound, and many others that I've grown up watching. He is definitely a force to be reckoned with and somebody that I have literally spent my entire life following his career just because he's such a great actor. And in this movie, it is no exception as to his talent, his skill, or how amazing he is. Right next to Tom Hanks is Michael Clarke Duncan. This gentle giant is amazing in this movie and in so many other movies he's been in. He's been in films such as The Island, Armageddon, Daredevil. For a lot of the younger viewers, he may be someone you don't recognize as much because sadly he did pass away in 2012. But let it be known that his influence in film is definitely one that has been missed. This film also gives us the talented David Morse as well as Michael Jeter. Both actors do a fantastic job in this film, and I just loved having them as well as the rest of the cast to make this film come to life. So, why watch The Green Mile? What makes this movie special? Stephen King is definitely an author that has written his fair share of books, and most people who are at least watching this channel have at least heard of him. Maybe you've seen one of his movies like The Shining. But most people typically attribute to Stephen King, as I used to, the horror genre, or at least a suspense, supernatural thriller. Basically anything that is gonna at least give you a jump scare or two. That's not this movie. Michael Clarke Duncan's character is named John Coffey. And one of the famous lines in it, which always kind of made me smile just for how delivered it is, pronounced like the drink, but spelled differently. And it just kind of shows you early on in this movie the kind of character that we're dealing with. John Coffey is a man of his time, a gentle giant set in the 1930s, but who is clearly very uneducated, very limited, but yet is accused of this heinous crime. On the flip side, you have Tom Hanks. His character is one who's been doing this job for years. He knows the routine, he knows how things have to go, and he's made peace with the job that he has, knowing that he has to do it because it is to keep people safe and to allow society to continue functioning. But when meeting John Coffey, he's really thrown off by this man who is so kind, so gentle, and yet he's accused of something so violent, it doesn't add up. So you're presented early on with the conundrum, the difficulty that our main characters are having as to believing that this man is guilty of such a crime. As the movie progresses, we find out that John Coffey actually has a very special gift. Now, it's not outright described or defined, but the very basic gist of it is that he's able to take in someone's hurt, pain, disease, and expel it. Now, I don't want to get too much into spoiler territory because I definitely want you to watch this movie and be surprised the way I was. But early on, we do see that John Coffey does at least use this on our main character, Tom Hanks, who had a really bad infection. Now, this does exhaust him, and it definitely leaves him weak, and it shows just the kind of person that Michael Clarke Duncan's character is, which is just somebody who both wants to help but knows that in helping it leaves him exposed to be taken either advantage of or just to be harmed. I wanted to take a minute to also talk about our two antagonists, Percy Wetmore and then Wild Bill. These two gentlemen are essential to making this story as compelling as it is, and how this story really wraps up their end is really interesting. Percy's just someone that is instantly dislikable, and as you see his character developed, you can't help but want something bad to happen to him. And then Wild Bill is just someone that you can tell is just unhinged, delusional, crazy, and it's someone that as you find out his backstory and how he's even connected to John Coffey, it really does give both Stephen King credit as well as this overall story and direction just a lot of credence as to how well it was done. So I just wanted to point out just a few of the things that really just made this movie special, not only to me, but I feel like to a lot of people who have seen it. This movie is actually set in 1935. Now, what I thought was interesting about that is that the movie Top Hat, which actually came out that year, they actually pushed the time frame forward 3 years. Originally set in 1932, it just kind of shows that extra attention to detail that the director and the writers gave, that they didn't want to just put a movie in that hadn't been out yet. So they really did put that extra thought into what this movie was going to be and what was going to be happening. Something interesting that I did find out after watching this movie was that Stephen King actually serialized this book, which was something that, in other words, he released it in parts. The reason why he did that was because it was a response to his fans that he knew would flip to the end of his books to find out what was going to happen, something that Stephen King mentioned even his mother used to do. So doing it that way allowed him to tell the story in individual chapters, and he's even admitted that he wasn't sure how the story would end. And I have to say that ending is fantastic. As I've said before with other movies I've reviewed, my biggest regret was that I haven't seen this one before. The emotion was real. My reactions just felt not just manipulated by the director and that I did exactly what they wanted, but it felt genuine. Obviously, it's a story about death row inmates, and one of the death row inmates' executions is actually one that is both quite graphic and quite emotional as to what's going on. And it's definitely one that it ignited a certain sense of both rage and fury, as well as, you know, sadness and pain. It just overall, wow, I couldn't believe that the movie that essentially this old, at the time of doing this review, it's going to be only 21, 22 years old. It got such a reaction out of me, but that's the magic of movies. They have that ability to just draw out our raw human emotions and oftentimes let us realize that there's nothing wrong with feeling them. There's nothing wrong with having them. If anything, the biggest crime we can have is holding them in and denying how we feel about something. Well, guys, I want to thank you for taking the time to go over the movie The Green Mile, and I hope that I've sparked your interest in it. Again, definitely a movie that I'm not going to just rewatch. I'm definitely going to just enjoy over and over again. Tom Hanks, Michael Clarke Duncan. Again, I just love these actors. I love what they've done, and especially with this movie, it was such a fantastic journey to go on. And I also want to take a quick second to thank everyone who's made it this far into the video. Obviously, this is something new that I'm doing, and I really just want to make it something that's both enjoyable, not just for me, but for everyone who's taken the time to watch these videos. So I want to say thanks to all of you guys, and feel free to subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me a movie that you like that most people may either not know, or that you feel sometimes doesn't get the right love. Or if anything, tell me your favorite Stephen King film. Obviously, there's a ton of them. In fact, there's over 30 that have been adapted into movies. So let me know which one's your favorite, and maybe it's one that we can review on another date. Once again, guys, thanks so much for joining me. Brandon here with Popcorn and Candy, and I'll talk to you guys next time.